What do you think of this whole Marshawn Lynch's mom Facebook page? Where she's,
wow.
Okay, how would you feel if your mom did that, where she ripped Mike Martz for the play calling with the Rams?
Oh man, that's a tough one. I mean, you got to be careful. I mean, Marshawn Lynch, he is from Oakland, man. So he's from a rough part. He's from a rough part, and if his mom, his mom is very passionate about her son's football, and I mean, beast mode had to come from somewhere.
Would you say something to your mother?
No. Moms can say anything they want. Those moms, those passionate moms that sit in the stands, and every other parent turn around and say to themselves, I wish that lady would sit down. But they never say it to her.
Was your mom like that?
Yes, my mom was. She was very vocal, and it was always, once I got tackled, about getting up off of me or guys not having to push me like that. The best. We played Tampa probably one Monday night, and then we played them again the next year. And my mom was staying at the same hotel in St. Louis because she loved hotels. She's staying at the same hotel, and she gets in the elevator with Warren Sapp and doesn't speak to him, like won't even talk to him, won't even look at him. She's just upset because he tackled me and like suplexed me and slammed me on the ground. And that's all she kept saying to me was, he didn't have to do my baby like that.
Talking to Marshall Faulk of the NFL Network joining us. I also was wondering about this, the NFL sack record. If you look at it with Michael Strahan holding that record, and what is that, 22 and a half sacks?
Yep.
With Justin Houston and J.J. Watt, and, we've got some really impressive sack artists. Do you think that sack record is not long for Michael Strahan?
You know what? I'm glad you said this, and I'm glad you even mentioned Justin Houston, because people talk, like when people talk about defensive players getting sacks, they only talk about J.J. Watt having 20. They forget that Houston had 22.
Yeah.
So I'm glad you brought him up. But as much as teams are passing in today's game, that record is so gettable. If you think about how many times teams maybe threw the ball in the 30s, you maybe had, let's say, 15 to 20 teams throwing the ball in the 30s. Now, I mean, you have teams throwing the ball 30 times. I mean, it's probably at least 25 teams or 30 teams tossing the ball around 30 times. I mean, it's unbelievable.
But I wonder, when you look at sack records, like we look at passing records, receptions, touchdown passes, we forget to look at interceptions for defensive players and also sacks. These numbers are going to be astronomical by the time some of these guys retire. That it used to be, if you had 100 sacks, you had a chance. You were a pretty good chance to get into the Hall of Fame. You may have 150 and not be in the Hall of Fame.
And that's why the criteria, which we don't know what the criteria is, to get into the Hall of Fame from player to player. If you play a position in most sports, if you do certain things, you get in. But in football, if you have a certain amount of yards as a receiver or a running back or as a quarterback or touchdowns, and then as a defensive player, interception, sacks, usually we know. Usually you would know, but we don't know that in football. So I think all of it's going to be skewed. It's going to start to look, how the receivers are? People think receivers, they call it funny numbers.
Yeah.
Say, once the funny numbers started, before the funny numbers, guys like Tim Brown, they maybe should have gotten in before that. But with the funny numbers, they're saying the Marvin Harrisons, they want to put Torrey and Isaac in the funny numbers, where guys like, say, a Wes Welker started having 100 catches. 100 catches was hard to do.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out how we're going to assess great wide receivers or even great quarterbacks, because everybody throws for 4,000 yards and everybody's throwing for probably 30 touchdowns. I don't think John Elway threw for more than 30 touchdowns maybe once in his career. Same with Joe Montana. I mean, it's different math now with these guys.
It is, and I think it's harder on the Hall of Fame committee, the guys who make the decisions from era to era, trying to decide how do we evaluate this? How do we look at this? How do we say, oh, this guy deserves to be in versus that guy? And you only have numbers to go by. How do you put an asterisk by the numbers when quarterbacks started throwing for 50 touchdowns and 40 touchdowns, and that was like status quo? I mean, if you don't throw for 4,000, 5,000 yards, you can't even call yourself an elite. Yeah, you're not an elite quarterback.
But do you realize what Dan Marino was doing back in 1984, Marshall?
Yes. I was well aware of it.
Crazy.
Big Dolphins fan. Huge Dolphins. I mean, I remember the first time, my first game against the Dolphins, I caught myself, Dan Marino is driving his team down. They need a field goal to tie us, touchdown to win. I caught myself rooting for Marino against the Colts as a rookie.
If the Dolphins had drafted you, Marino would have had a couple of Super Bowls, Marshall.
Oh man, that just could not have happened. I mean, that wouldn't have been right. I would have. I don't even know if I would have been able to been as effective. Just a fan, I tell people I'm not ashamed to say it. I was a football fan before I got to pro football, and when I was in pro football, before I became a household name. I mean, I was still a football fan. That first Pro Bowl I was in, I remember being in the huddle. I mean, I followed John Elway around. I sat next to him. I talked to him. I was like around these guys like I was a fan.
It was like their One Direction, and you were a fanboy back then.
Yeah, waiting around the block for them, yeah.
24 years ago yesterday, Marshall, what happened?
Oh, man, was that my UOP game?
That was, you were playing Pacific.
Yeah, UOP.
Yeah.
University of Pacific.
Not a bad game. That was your second college game, wasn't it?
Yes, it was.
So you're 18 years of age, and all you did is rush 4. You remember?
Listen, this was epic for me because I had been, I was a pretty good football player, but my high school coach made me play every position on offense, quarterback, receiver, running back. So I didn't know how good of a running back I could be, or I could have been in high school, and to only play running back in college, that was my first game, like getting to play a lot of downs and 37 touches, 37 carries, 387 yards, and 7 touchdowns. I remember that.
You scored 44 points in that. You outscored Pacific. It was 55-34. I remember I was working at the mothership, and everybody said, watching that game, how can you not give him the Heisman Trophy after the second game of the season? And back then, we still weren't acknowledging freshmen.
No.
That you had to be a junior or senior to win the Heisman. And I used to rail. I was so angry at the Heisman Trophy Committee when Adrian Peterson wasn't being recognized. And I said, if you're going to do this, then you must say it's only for juniors or seniors, or stop with the charade. And then they eventually let me vote on it. And I always look at freshman or sophomore. You can still be the best player in college football being a freshman or sophomore.
Well, I think they finally got it right. They are allowing freshmen and sophomores to now be a part of the race. And when you look at college football, I mean, in the state that is in, they need those guys to kind of lift the award up. The award started to be detached from the pro football game. Like, you could be good in college and not even have a sniff in the pros. So they have to change some things with that. Dan, the funniest thing happened to me a couple of days ago. I was playing golf at the country club, and the guy asked me, "How come you're not in the College Football Hall of Fame?" I was like, "I don't know." Like, it hadn't dawned on me that, I was like, "Wow, I don't know." Like, once again, I don't know the criteria for that either.
What kind of numbers did you have?
They were so-so. I mean, probably, maybe some of the best numbers ever. Maybe. something like that. I mean, I don't know. Maybe it's because I didn't play in one of the big conferences. Yep. They don't really acknowledge. Maybe that's it. I don't know. They didn't say when you're in college you have to go to a big school to. I don't know how.
So that hurt you going to San Diego State?
I don't know. No, it didn't hurt me. I love San Diego. I love San Diego State. Love my Aztecs. The best decision I made in my life.
Could you have gone out after your freshman year? Let's say this was basketball, or that you could leave after your freshman year. Could you have gone to the NFL after your freshman year?
I think physically I would have been ready. I think mentally I needed to deal with the stardom in college and the attention and how to handle it, because if you don't know how to deal with it in college, you're not going to know how to deal with it when you get to the NFL. So, physically, there's no doubt I can play. I could have played, and I would have rather had those 2 years in the pros, learning how to play the game in the pros, which would have given me a longer NFL career than those 2 years in college. But I don't think mentally I was ready to make that leap. I would have needed to be surrounded with the right people to make sure that I was making the right decisions. And this is the case off the field. You have a lot of money. You can't do anything. You can't enjoy yourself. As a kid, it can frustrate you.
Before I let you go, you broke in with the Colts with Peyton Manning, and now you see Peyton Manning. I know it's a rush to judgment here, but I get the feeling it's his last year because of a couple things. With Kubiak coming in, Elway saying you got to take a pay cut. You're sort of saying let's try this one more time with Peyton. Granted, it's probably an overreaction, but I'm going to base it off how the last year ended, what happened during the offseason. Your thoughts on Peyton Manning?
I agree with you, but not because of anything physical. I was stunned. We were doing game day final, and his press conference came on after the game, and Peyton said something that I really had not heard him say maybe since his rookie year. They asked a question about him being under center or in the shotgun and about some plays called, and he said that he wasn't equipped to answer in that question. He might not be the right person to ask. I had never heard him say that.
Wow.
Because he had been in control, since year two. He had been in control, and if this is what we're going to get guys running up the middle, hitting Peyton, he has him taking shots, then this is not going to sit well with him. He wants to control the protections, control the plays, make sure he take the hits off of himself so he can get rid of the football. I didn't see that on Sunday against Baltimore.
It's always great to catch up with you, Marsh. We'll be watching Thursday night with the NFL Network. We got the Chiefs and the Broncos. Thanks for joining us.
All right, guys.